represent her in a musical way?
So for me, I obviously had to do research because I didn't know that much about this period, and also from the point of view of the Spanish side. And so when I learned more about Manuela Malasaña, the first thing that came to my mind, and I was thinking about her, was how much power she had and how fearless she was, and that what she did, she unfortunately was killed at a very young age, but what she did has been inspiring people from then to centuries, moving forward. So that was my first idea, that she was so young. She was 17 when she died, and before that she was of course trying to fight the oppression that was happening in the country. There are different accounts of how she was killed, and so it was a little bit of just research to see, which one is the true account. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to find it. All of those are still, debated. But the main thing was that she was, resisting. That was the common theme in all of those accounts, was that she was resisting the oppression, and because of that, she was killed. So what I tried to do in the music was to kind of introduce the both the environment of that town, and also what she was doing, and her personality, I think, in that time. So mainly though, it's about her, and it's about the people. So I knew that she was very young. She was 17. She was a seamstress or a tailor. And so I tried to use elements from that as well, to bring some sounds from that kind of craft into the music, how the instruments are playing it, maybe make them sound specifically like certain tools in the world of tailoring and being a seamstress. And but at the same time, I wanted to really represent her with that type of power. One of the things that I have seen, I think a lot of people, or maybe it's been going on for some time, that people assume that, and it's just it's not really like a it is a misrepresentation, but it's mostly the problem of not fully representing. And that's when they try to show specifically women in works of music, with this very kind of ideas of delicate and instruments that are thought to be womanly. They're, of course, instruments are can be anything. So that's kind of the belief, I think, that has been given to people maybe by the society. And I think it's just not a full representation, of course, because it's that's not always about women. It's not always the delicate side. It's not always kind of the fear, like timid side. So I was trying to show both sides. I was trying to give her a really lyrical melody, something that's, of course, singable, it's beautiful. But at the same time, I was trying to do it with as much power as I could. So my goal was to show her with power. And that's why I used a lot of instruments that I thought showed that, a lot of brass, a lot of low instruments, the bass, the cello, to kind of show that power, Yes, the percussion, yes. To show that power, to show, of course, you can be delicate and you can be beautiful, as women, but you can also be powerful. Those things can exist at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So that's kind of what I was trying to do. And I picked the theme, and I kind of, developed that theme throughout, and that's Manuela's theme. And you can see how it changes throughout the music. So yeah, I hope I answered the question correctly, but yeah. Definitely wanted to have that element of the scissors. That was the first thing that I really wanted. Even before starting the piece, when I read about her, I was like, I want that element in the music somewhere. And it was kind of interesting trying to make it. So the element, of course, is the sound of scissors, the way you cut. And it's very interesting the way it was kind of hard, the way to try to make that sound for the orchestra, for an instrument, because it's not just one, it's not just the snap. It's, of course, when you're cutting, it's kind of the sound of as the scissors going through the fabric or whatever you're cutting. It's making that, it's a little bit of a more I don't know, not delicate, but it's a little bit of a sharper sound, and then you have the snap. So I was really trying to show that, and I decided to show it through the strings. I thought that was the best way to kind of bring that out. And when that moment comes in the music, it's not really it's a very tense moment. You can imagine her kind of living in this environment, of this war environment, and trying to do her craft during that time. And so it's definitely not a good time. She's doing that with this environment of tension, of fear. But at the same time, it's very determined. She's still doing it. She's making those cuts, and that's what's important. She's not losing hope. And the same thing about the heartbeats. The heartbeats were it was actually an idea that kind of was created. I didn't really plan for it, but I think came about while I was writing. And it's mostly about that, steadiness of your decision and of determination, even when everything around you is kind of so chaotic and it's in chaos and nothing is certain, but you have that beat of, that steady beat. And that's what tells you, that's her heartbeat. And it comes, in the beginning, and when what happens to her when she is killed. And of course, towards the end, because that heartbeat now belongs to the people. Now it's something that inspired everyone else to continue that determination and to, fight for their freedom.
Yeah, and there are another technique, very interesting at the end, for example, with Pizzicato Bartók. It's absolutely incredible. Yes. Because Pizzicato Bartók in S is a special technique for the strings instruments. No, you play like you pull the strings, okay? So that hits the board, okay? Like pa. It's a very special technique from Bartók, the composer, and it is written in a way that paralyze the ear, because it's the end, and it's absolutely. I don't know if I did a spoiler, but it's absolutely
no, I think
incredible.
I did too, though.
No, but that's
moment.
great, because all the people that is going to listen to us can pay attention. The people that is going to listen to us and that is going to go to the premiere or the other concerts of the season can pay attention to that moment, to the last parts of the work, and can pay attention to that pizzicato.
Yeah.
And there are another small detail. It's only for us because the public can't hear. Is when Sab composed the score, she did it 17 pages for the conductor, because Manolita had 17 years, and also it's absolutely incredible. And also the work have 12 minutes, and I don't remember. There are another two, because it's 2 of May.
2 of May, yeah. It's the measures, the number of measures. It ends on 217. So 17 again, and the 2, of course.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a nice detail for us, because obviously the public can hear, but when I receive the score and Sab comment us in the. I think, it's absolutely, it's like operistic, sorry. So it's amazing.
Yes, so also the numbers, also the numbers of the pages, and everything is very, very prepared. And did you have to cut some things that you would have liked to put in the work, and you did not, just to
no, actually, no. It was because I think I was getting towards the end, and it just worked out really perfectly. I think I did have an intention to kind of have the numbers be symbolic, But also I wasn't trying to do it at the expense of the work. I was trying to, of course, do whatever I needed to do for the work to sound as well as it could. But when it happened, and also it was towards the end that I kind of decided to, I think for the measure numbers, that was kind of the limit I set for myself. I said, okay, I'm gonna finish it here, and it was a good time, and it worked with the music. So I was very happy it turned out that way too.
And the instruments used for this work are the classical orchestral formation of the 18th century. So they are maybe very different from the instruments you usually use in your music composition for films. So where do you, as a composer, feel you have more tools to create new and innovative music? Like it was difficult for you to compose with this classical framework?
Mm-hmm. No, not at all, because my background is mainly classical. When I started, generally, when I was little and up to now, I've always focused on the classical side a lot, because it just teaches you so much. There's always something to learn, and so I had written works for this kind of classical setting before. And also in film music, there's a lot of the same instruments that are used. So it was really, it was helpful to know that. But in terms of the bringing a new sound, I think the great thing about, well, for example, in this orchestration, it actually helps because there is a limit, to the number of instruments that are present. And the one good thing I think all of the composers and creators can agree on is that it's always great to have the limit, because when you don't have it, your brain is just so overwhelmed. You don't know where to go. But when you do have the limit, you are trying to make it work within that framework. And it really helps, because then you start to think, oh, here's another way I can use, for example, the sound of the violins, the sound of the Bartok fits, here's another way I can show that. Because for me, of course, if you do it, for example, with, I don't know, instruments of like synths and electronic instruments, sure, you can make that scissor sound probably in a different way. You can make it maybe not easier, but maybe like more close to the original sound. But in this case, I didn't have that. So I was like, okay, how can I make that work? How can I bring it? And so you start to think about all the possibilities that these different instruments have in how they play, all the techniques. And you start to kind of experiment a little bit, which I think is always great. And that's what brings a new sound to all the pieces that I think every composer writes. It's how they can use all of those possibilities in front of them within that limitation, and make their choices and write the music.
And let me say something that is very interesting, maybe for the public, because when you work with a composer, like a conductor or like a musician, you can study the scores, the piece, okay? And you can take position about the ideas from the composer directly. When you recite the works, you can see if the piece have a nice orchestration, that have a good balance. In this case, I can see, for example, Shabnam have a very incredible technique like composer, because she knows perfectly the sound of the orchestra. She knows perfectly the effects, okay? And you see in the score that the words working perfectly with this type of orchestra. So she knows perfectly the problems, the real problems, because compose is not put in a PC and make a beautiful melody and put different textures with the instruments or rhythms. Is have a lot of problems that you need to take solutions, because later you don't have enough time to rehearse. So the public maybe is useful for them to know how the composer need to know perfectly the instruments, the problems, and in this case, is absolutely incredible. For example, the tempo, Ines. If you play the piano, you can play faster than the orchestra. The orchestra always is slower than piano, for example. So you need to know this information if you are a composer, because they sometimes they are problems with the tempo. For example, it's possible to play for the instruments, because Shabnam said they are humans. They have problems. They need to breathe, and they need to recuperate their bowels. So this is the real life.
Yes.
Yes. So that's very important, and that's very interesting also. So now for this part of the interview, we have to thank Javi, but unfortunately say goodbye to him.
Okay.
Right now. But thank you a lot for coming, Javi. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Okay, thank you very much. It has been a great pleasure for me share the time with Shabnam and you, speaking with them, this amazing work in this case. So goodbye.
Bye, Javi. Thanks a lot. Okay, and now we're gonna welcome Alfonsina, who is our second orchestra conductor. So hello, Alfonsina. Thank you for coming with us tonight.
Hey, thank you so much for having me today.
Okay, these are some questions to get to know you a little better now, Shabnam. First of all, what was the experience that made you decide to dedicate your life to music?
I think my family played the biggest part for me, because both my parents and also my sister, growing up, there was always music in the house. There was always different forms of art in the house, and this was like international music. It was Iranian classical music, Iranian pop, but there was also, pop songs from the US, a lot of just pop culture also from all around the world. So that I think was the biggest effect, and that was the biggest reason, because I just grew up with it. I remember when my parents wanted to wake us up, me and my sister, they would always play one of the CDs that we had. It depended what was the day for, what were they in the mood for, but it was always like that. So that was always kind of the alarm clock, was that.
So you didn't have that awful clock that is saying so, because for me that is traumatic.
It is.
No, I totally get it. We did have the I did have just the normal clock, but when it was kind of days, maybe like the good days, the fun days, the school days where we were all, I was asleep, but but when it was that time, it was like all music, and again, it was different forms, also a lot of classical music, a lot of film music, and that's when I was, I grew so interested in that. And I have been playing piano since I was 7, so it's been years. My sister also is a musician. She studied music in the university in Iran. And all of this, I think, kind of really just made me fall in love with it. It's, I don't know, it's a part of life, I think, for, I think it's a part of life for my family, and I think for all musicians, it's just a very, very important just element in your life. And when I decided to start composing, actually, I never thought I would, because I always thought that composition was always for, the very famous, mostly guys, I thought, it's always the old, old guys who are doing that. I could never become a composer, I've never seen that before. But then I realized, no, I could just write for myself, I could just start writing something, because I like to play around on the piano. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And then my biggest influence actually in writing, and it's always funny to say this, but I watched Game of Thrones a lot, and the composer for Game of Thrones, Rami Djawadi, he's been a huge influence. I think I always say, you know, he made
definitely.
my life what it is.
We can hear that in the music. I mean, in A Cut of Red, is so much of Game of Thrones and feels
I hope so. Yeah. So he had the biggest impact, I think, because I mean, I love the show, but when I listen to his music, and he's Iranian and German, and first of all, it was such a proud moment. I was like, oh my God, you know, he's Iranian. Look at that, it's amazing. But then I loved the music, and I loved how he was telling stories with it, and that's why I fell in love with it, with writing, because I was thinking, oh, you know, I can tell stories now. And that's when I decided to, you know, actually start writing, you know.
But the most interesting is that we have her with us right now, which is not a common thing, because we are actually so used to play things from people that they died like 100 of years ago. So for us, it's so interesting to really embrace and the music in a different way, because I understand what Shabnam wants to say, because we have kind of a contemporary story, you know, of life.
And how old were you, Shabnam, when you wrote your first work? Maybe a short work.
Yeah. First official. Well, the first one I did was solo piano. It was I think I was maybe I was 14, 15 or 16, somewhere there.
For example, related to your age, as a young composer, because you are 24, how do you value the experience of joining this orchestral project, the Joven Orquesta Sierra de Madrid project, where one of the main pillars are precisely youth?
Mm-hmm. Oh, amazing. I honestly really, really love doing this project, and it was such a pleasure to just even be told to do this. So I was really happy, and it was great, because, you know, I'm thinking about where the musicians are in their journey and in their career, and so of course that affects what I'm writing, because I have to, like, you know, keep it something that they're all comfortable with, but at the same time maybe give them a little bit of a challenge, you know, here and there. But I think it's great, because, you know, I never got to write for this type of setting and for these musicians that are, you know, these ages. So it's definitely, like, it was a learning experience for me. It really helped me in the writing, and I know that it's really great, because I think they bring a really fresh perspective in the playing. So I'm excited to see how they're gonna interpret the music. I think it will be really, really nice.
Mm-hmm. Because we have musicians from 13 to 30 years old. So
okay, yeah.
We have very, very young people. Okay, and talking about a little bit about classical music, we all know that nowadays there are a lot of kinds of music that are different, like pop, even techno, rap, rock, things like that. And little by little, people have abandoned classical music. So why do you think classical music is not as popular as in the old times, maybe? Why isn't it very, very popular?
I think you touch the spot, you know, creating audiences. The thing with classical music is not like people have abandoned it itself. It's like, as for every music that we used to listen, some people is worried about to create an audience, you know, to make to listen that music. So if you go to the radio, you know, the big percent of the radio just put rap, pop, and techno. That's why we heard them. So I think what we need is to reproduce and give more access to classical music. I really don't remember any person, and I have been conductor of a lot of orchestras from the countryside, you know, where usually people doesn't have big theaters or auditoriums, you know. But when I was playing and conducting the orchestra there is no one that I look at them and the people seems bored, you know. They were always like astonished or interested somehow, even if it was some people like with eyes closed, like it's because the thing was so relaxing for them, you know.
In reality, everybody loves classical music. The thing is that classical music doesn't have a great marketing campaign. Like, for example, pop music and electronic music has very, very big marketing campaigns. Especially pop music is like the trend. And that's something that we try to do. We try to, as Alfonsina said, we try to give access to this kind of music, to classical music, to the public, to the young public especially. So that's one of our aims, to bring that music and also to make them get excited with this music, to make them feel it, to make them enjoy it so much. So that's one of our aims. So maybe in a few years we can talk about that everybody is listening to classical music. So it would be great. So it's becoming more popular than some years ago. I think, for example, at my friends and I, we listen more classical music than we used to hear some years ago. And also, for example, I know that there are some, for example, discos that are playing classical music like in an electronic way. So it's becoming more and more popular.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yes, but it's like we need to make people like more classical music. So it's like kind of a hashtag I love classical music. We have to start saying it to make it more popular also.
But of course, the way like you said about this orchestra, of course, is that, you know, you're starting to give it to the young, and that's really important because when you learn from a young age, and I think you fall in love with it as you go, you know.
Yeah.
So I think the most important thing, is that this orchestra is doing is just bringing it to everyone, and so that's definitely going to have an impact in the future of those of whoever's starting to listen now, you know, or hears for the first time. So
Yes, completely. Okay, so we're gonna follow with the question, because I want to know how it is the process of composing a work. So just like to some of the ideas, if you can explain the steps to people that's listening to us, the steps to compose a work, because many of the people who is going to be listening to us don't know how to start composing a work, or it's something that you do meticulously, or something that just pops up in your mind.
I think Ines created this question for her. I mean, it's something that she wants to know.
I really want to know. No, but I have to say that I wrote some songs, but songs not like I compose a work like yours, of course, not at all, but just a melody, because I really love to sing all my life. Yes, I've been singing all days in my life, so I used to write little songs.
No, that is composing.
I need to know the steps.
No, but that is composing. Yeah, that's basically how. But yeah, I mean, it depends. So it's really funny. So when it's for someone else, let's say when it's a commission,
Yes,
I think the
it's
first
for a
time.
friend. A friend asked me about
Yes,
these
yes,
steps, and this information is for a friend, of course.
yeah. But I think for composing, it really depends. I know every single person has their own method, and it's always different. And it's a method you kind of learn to get comfortable with, and you learn yourself. So my method is not the same as someone else, and you should never compare, because that one works for them and mine works for me, and it might be totally the opposite. But if it works, it works. But yeah, I mean, it depends. Sometimes I think for some people it starts with the melody, and that's the most important thing. I think for me also, it starts with the melody. I hear it. Sometimes I hear it in different things. I might hear it outside in just a random, I don't know, it's the motorcycle or the train, and then someone talking, and then I like hear something and I think, oh, I like that. I might use that later. Sometimes it's a feeling that you start with and you put it into a melody. There's sometimes that I actually like dream of a melody. Actually, that has happened before, where I wake up and I'm like, oh, I have this, I'm gonna record it. But yeah, personally, from my method is it starts with melody, and it's really melody oriented, and I think it's also because I believe it's a little bit because of the culture that I grew up with. It's the music is very melodic. It's a lot of poetry, so the focus is always on that melody. And after that, it depends. I usually go with the story. That's what it helps me. So mine is also very story based. I try to think of, okay, what am I telling? What kind of, again, I said I'm a visual person, so I'm trying to say, okay, what am I showing? Or I put myself in that situation, in that story, and think, okay, how would I feel to hear this music in this situation? Or what music would I want to hear if I was in this situation, in this story? So that really helps me kind of think of, okay, if I was the character in this made up story that I'm making, if I'm going through this, I don't know, day in my life, what music do I think it would sound like, or what music would I want to hear? So that's really how I do it. And then of course you have the other elements that come together. So you have the harmony, and the harmony is really the main part, I think, that gives a lot of expression to it, because the melody, of course, is the melody, but the harmony it can change it entirely. The feeling, it can change the feeling. And yeah, I mean, it depends. Sometimes it comes with a lot of panic. You're just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. That happens a lot in works that you're maybe doing for someone else, when they tell you, and the first thing that happens to you is you're panicking. But then you get into it, you're like, okay, that panic is for everyone. I think it's just the start of something new. But then you're like, okay, now I know what to do. And yeah, I mean, it depends. I usually start playing on the piano sometimes. When I'm composing, I play the melody. I try it with different harmonies, with different chords. I don't do anything too crazy. I don't go like, creating really, really intricate chords. I just do very simple things. I do an arpeggio on the left hand to see how it sounds. And then it depends, if I want to bring it to the instruments, I try to think of what instrument would play that melody. That's the first thing. Again, because every instrument has its own character when playing it. So I try to think, okay, what do I hear? And that's when it helps, when you're listening in your head, you start to hear, okay, this instrument would sound like this. This instrument would sound like this. And then if I want, and then of course I start to kind of program it. I write it on paper and software. You can also write it by hand. I know composers who do that, but I do it on the software, because I can just put all the instruments there that I want. And then I have the other software, which I can use sample libraries, which are basically like recordings of different instruments, to kind of create the sound that I want when I don't have an orchestra like this. So if I don't have a live orchestra playing and I want to still get the sound, I use this technique. Yeah, but I think it's a lot from I don't know. It's sometimes really draining, to be honest, because you're going through it and you're doing so well. You know, you're writing everything, and then for a week you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't have any ideas. But then you start again. I think the most important thing is to think of the story. Again, this is very personal, and I will say that just for me. But for you to find your method, find the method that works for you in composition. If it's a story, if it's a feeling, if it's an event from your past.
What would you like to say to the musicians of our orchestra who will perform your work, and also to the public that is going to attend the concerts? What would you like to say to them?
Oh God, it's very hard. Well, I hope they
another
enjoy.
tough one.
Yes. The first thing is I hope they enjoy it, you know, and to enjoy it as in fully experience the music. Just listen to it, you know. That's the best way you can experience music, is to listen, and just let yourself feel the way you feel. But I think it would be great for them to actually also look up Manuela Malasaña, to read a little bit about her history, about the history of that time. Because of course it helped me, you know. I'm not from Spain, so I had to go and do the research. So it really helps if you read a little bit about that and see, you know, the kind of person she was, you know, what was happening, and also to kind of pay attention to the symbolic things that we mentioned throughout the interview, with the different instruments coming in, and with the different techniques they're using, and to try to imagine the events that were taking place. But I think the best thing I can say is to just experience it, you know, experience it the way you do, and see how it makes you feel, what you see in your mind. When I was reading about what was happening, in this case to Manuela Malasaña, and that she was like very young, it really took me back to what is happening in my country, so in my home country of Iran, because there has been a woman-led revolutions for over a year going on, and there's so many young people, like, you know, Manuela, that are being killed, and in this case for the right to be free, for the right to choose. And you know, that having that personal experience helped me also put my soul into this work, because I was thinking, you know, how did I feel, you know, how was that experience for me, you know, for all the people, for all of the Iranians who were going through that, or are still going through that. And so yeah, I think you do put your heart and soul into it. I think you do, and I think every person puts their own life experiences into it as well. And I also want to add something about the audience's experience of this piece, is of course to think about the social context that it's in, the political context that it's in, because it's about fighting for freedom. It's about fighting against oppression. And of course, around the world, we are seeing so much of that today. And I think it's also helpful when you are listening to a piece and when you're experiencing a form of art to think about what it means in the world today. And so I would love the audience to, you know, think about what is happening in the world, you know, and what they can do to kind of to fight against this oppression, and help those who are in need of assistance, or for their voice to be heard around the world as they're fighting for freedom and for their rights.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for coming with us tonight, Shabnam, and also thank you to Javier and Alfonsina. I hope you enjoy your performance of your work by our musicians, and also that all the people that are listening to this interview come to see our concerts that are going to be held in this month of May. I'm going to do a brief remind of the dates. We have a concert the 5th of May in Navacerrada, the 11th in Los Molinos, the 12th in Alpedrete, 17th of May in Manzanares del Real, and finally our last concert 18th of May in Cercedilla. So I hope you enjoy our music. I hope you, Shabnam, enjoy your work. I hope everybody enjoys the conduction of Javier and Alfonsina, and I really hope you enjoy our Orquesta, Joven Orquesta Sierra de Madrid. So thank you very much for coming with us tonight, and we'll see everybody at the concerts.